Dr. Sam Carter adjusted his visor, shielding his eyes from the soft, lavender glow of Xanthera 5's twin suns. This planet was unlike anything he'd ever seen. A serene world of crystal-clear rivers, golden forests, and towering spires of alien architecture. As a xenobiologist, Sam was thrilled to work in the Galactic Union's cultural exchange program. His job was to study the flora, fauna, and unique biology of Xanthera 5's dominant species, the Xanthari. The Xanthari were humanoid in shape but far more elegant. Their translucent skin shimmered like starlight, and their large, expressive eyes gave them an otherworldly grace. Sam had spent months learning their language and customs, and while they were polite and kind, they'd mostly kept their distance. That changed on an otherwise ordinary morning. Sam was poring over a holo display in his research lab when Velira, a Xanthari ambassador, entered without warning. She moved swiftly, her long silver robes flowing like liquid. Her expression was calm but focused, as if she had made a decision she couldn't reverse. "Dr. Carter," she said in flawless English, her voice soft yet commanding. Sam looked up, startled. It wasn't every day a high-ranking Xanthari visited his lab. "Ambassador Velira, what can I do for you?" She paused, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "We need to talk about a matter of great importance. It concerns the survival of my people." Sam stood up, curiosity piqued. "Of course. What's going on?" Velira took a deep breath. "Human, we need to breed." The words hung in the air like an echo. Sam blinked, unsure if he had misheard. "I'm sorry. What?" "To be precise," Velira continued, unflustered, "we need your assistance in solving a biological crisis that threatens our species. Our traditional methods of reproduction have failed, and your species might be the key to saving us." Sam stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. "Wait, are you suggesting?" "Not in the literal sense," Velira clarified quickly, noticing his discomfort. "We do not require physical unions. What we need is your expertise. Your species possesses genetic resilience that we lack. We believe a fusion of Xanthari and human DNA could restore our population's vitality." Sam exhaled in relief, though the request was still extraordinary. "That's a lot to take in. Can you explain the problem in more detail?" Velira nodded. "Over the past century, a dormant virus in our genome has reawakened due to environmental changes on our planet. It prevents viable reproduction, causing genetic decay with each generation. We have tried every solution within our knowledge, but nothing has worked. When humanity joined the Galactic Union, we studied your biology and discovered that your genetic structure is remarkably adaptive. You survive under extreme conditions and adapt to threats in ways we cannot. We hope to replicate that resilience." Sam rubbed the back of his neck, trying to wrap his head around the situation. "So, you want to combine human and Xanthari DNA to create hybrids?" "Precisely," Velira said, "but it must be done carefully and ethically. Your role would be to oversee the process, ensuring compatibility and mutual respect between our species. You are uniquely qualified as both a xenobiologist and a representative of your kind." Sam couldn't help but feel the weight of her words. This wasn't just a scientific project. It was a matter of survival for an entire species. "This is unprecedented. I'll need to consult with Earth and the Galactic Union before I can give you an answer." "Of course," Velira said, her tone unwavering. "But time is running out. If we do not act soon, our species will face extinction within 2 generations." The room fell silent, save for the hum of the lab's equipment. Sam could see the sincerity in Velira's eyes, a mixture of hope and desperation. "I'll help," he said finally, the words surprising even himself. "At the very least, I'll do everything I can to understand the problem and find a solution." Velira inclined her head in gratitude. "Thank you, Dr. Carter. You will not face this alone. I will assist you in every way possible." As Velira turned to leave, Sam's mind raced with questions. Could humans and Xanthari truly collaborate on something so profound? Would humanity even agree to such a plan? And why did Velyra seem so personally invested in this mission? One thing was certain: Sam's quiet days of research were over. Whatever came next, it would change the future of two species forever. Dr. Sam Carter sat in his lab, staring at the holographic display of Xanthari DNA. The intricate patterns of alien chromosomes were unlike anything he had ever seen. Every time he thought he understood their genetic structure, he discovered something new and more complicated. Sam's fingers hovered over the controls, but his mind was elsewhere. The conversation with Velyra echoed in his thoughts. We need to breed. At first, the idea seemed absurd, impossible even. But now, as he examined the data, the situation began to feel more real. The Xanthari weren't just asking for help. They were desperate. And Sam could see why. Their reproductive crisis was not just about biology. It was about survival. He glanced over at the message pad on his desk. It had been a few hours since his conversation with Velyra, and he was still waiting for a response from Earth. Until then, he had to find a solution, or at least understand the problem better. Why didn't they figure this out before? Sam muttered under his breath. If their virus is so dangerous, how did they not notice it earlier? The virus, as Velyra had explained, was ancient, something that had remained dormant for centuries. The Xanthari had once lived in harmony with their environment, and their population flourished. But as their planet's ecosystem began to shift due to climate changes and external influences, the virus reactivated. Now, it was systematically eroding their ability to reproduce. Without a solution, their species was on the brink of extinction. Sam rubbed his temples. The more he studied the virus, the more complicated it seemed. It didn't just attack the reproductive systems of Xanthari. It also disrupted their genetic diversity. The Xanthari had a limited gene pool, and their isolated culture had only worsened the situation. With no new genetic material, their species had become increasingly vulnerable to the virus. Maybe human DNA really could help, Sam said to himself. He knew that human genetic material had a remarkable ability to adapt to new environments. In fact, humans had colonized dozens of planets, each with its own set of challenges. They had survived extreme radiation, harsh atmospheres, and even alien viruses. The more Sam thought about it, the more he realized that the Xanthari's only hope for survival might lie in the very thing they had been avoiding, mixing their genetic code with another species. And that species, if it could be done carefully, was humanity. Let's see what we can do here, Sam murmured, adjusting the holographic display. He needed to test the compatibility of human and Xanthari DNA before making any decisions. He could create a simulation, a preliminary study to understand how the two genomes might interact. As he worked, Sam felt a tap on his shoulder. Dr. Carter. Velyra's voice was soft but firm. Startled, Sam turned to face her. Ambassador Velyra, I didn't hear you come in. Velyra smiled gently, her glowing skin shifting from pale blue to silver. I didn't want to interrupt your research, but I wanted to check on your progress. How are you doing? I'm getting there, Sam said, trying to hide his exhaustion. It's a complicated process, but I think I'm starting to understand the problem. Tell me what you've learned, Velyra said, her eyes shining with curiosity. Sam gestured to the holographic display. Your virus is incredible. In a way, it's unlike anything I've seen before. It doesn't just harm your reproductive systems. It actually alters your genetic code over time. The longer it stays in your genome, the more it damages your ability to reproduce. But I think the virus also reacts to changes in your environment. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Velyra nodded. Yes, our scientists have seen similar patterns, but none of us have been able to stop it. We've tried everything: medications, genetic modifications, even altering our diet and environment. But nothing works. That's why we turn to you. Sam paused. I think I may have a solution, but it's not simple. We need to introduce new genetic material, human DNA, into the mix. If we can fuse your DNA with human DNA in the right way, it might create the genetic diversity needed to counteract the virus. V. Lyra was quiet for a moment. You're saying that we need to blend our genetics? Sam nodded. Yes, but it's not about creating new life forms. We're looking for compatibility, how our genomes might interact. If we can make it work, your species might regain the ability to reproduce naturally again. Lyra's eyes widened. You believe this will work? I can't say for sure yet, Sam admitted, but it's the best shot we've got. And if we don't try, your people could disappear. Lyra was silent, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she spoke. If it means saving my people, I will do whatever it takes, even if it means working closely with humanity. Sam felt a rush of determination. There was no turning back now. Let's get to work. As the two of them worked together in the lab, Sam realized that this project was bigger than anything he had ever done. It wasn't just about science. It was about saving a species. And despite the challenges ahead, Sam felt a spark of hope. Together, humanity and the Xanthari might just have a chance. Weeks had passed since Sam and Lyra began working together on the hybrid project. They had made progress, and the preliminary results were promising. But Sam knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge was yet to come, convincing the Galactic Union that this experiment was not only possible but necessary. The intergalactic meeting was scheduled to take place in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Union headquarters. Sam stood in the vast hall, feeling small beneath the towering windows that stretched far above. The chamber was filled with representatives from countless species, each one unique in appearance, language, and culture. Humans, Xanthari, Yadrathians, and hundreds of other species gathered around a massive table. Lyra was by his side, her pale blue skin glowing in the dim light. She had grown more comfortable with Sam, and he with her. Over the last few weeks, their conversations had become less formal and more friendly, and Sam could sense that Lyra was not just fighting for her people, but also deeply invested in the success of their partnership. Remember, Dr. Carter, Lyra said softly, her voice steady. This is more than just about science. It's about our survival. I trust you will present our case with the seriousness it deserves. Sam nodded. I know. It's just, I never thought I'd be standing here with a Xanthari ambassador, arguing for human DNA to save your species. Lyra gave him a small smile. The universe has a way of surprising us. The meeting began, and a hush fell over the room. The first speaker was a representative from the Jethorians, a species of tall insectoid creatures. Their wings buzzed softly as they spoke, their voices raspy and sharp. Ambassador Lyra, the Jethorian representative, began, his antennae twitching. We have reviewed the proposal you put forward. While we understand the challenges facing your species, we must question the ethics of such an experiment. Fusing your DNA with a foreign species, human or otherwise, may result in unpredictable consequences. We cannot afford to risk your people's extinction by pursuing such an uncertain path. Lyra straightened, her eyes glowing brighter. I understand your concern, but we have exhausted every other option. This isn't about taking unnecessary risks. It's about saving lives. If we do nothing, my people will cease to exist. The virus we face is slowly wiping us out, and nothing in our genetic history has prepared us for this. Human DNA offers the diversity we lack. It may be our only hope. The room buzzed with murmurs. Sam could see the Jethorians weren't convinced. He cleared his throat and stood beside Lyra, ready to add his voice to the debate. I understand the fears of the Jethorian people, Sam said, his voice steady but full of urgency. But sometimes, in the face of extinction, you have to take bold actions. Humanity has faced its own challenges in the past. We've adapted, thrived, and survived because we've learned to embrace change. We believe that by combining human and Xanthari DNA, we can help restore balance to your species. The alternative is far worse. Complete annihilation. A silence followed Sam's words, the weight of his statement hanging in the air. Then, another voice spoke up. This time, a representative of the Yadrathians, a species of floating, translucent beings. They were known for their scientific prowess, and their opinion carried weight in the Union. "We have studied the genetic compatibility of many species over the years," the Yadrathian representative said. "And I must admit, Dr. Carter, that your proposal intrigues us. The Zenthari have a long history of isolation, and the virus that plagues them has indeed proven difficult to combat. Introducing foreign genetic material could create the diversity needed to overcome the virus. However, we caution you to proceed with extreme caution. Such a process must be regulated carefully to prevent unintended consequences." Sam nodded, relieved that the Yadrathians seemed more open to the idea. "We plan to take every precaution. We will proceed with research under the guidance of both Zenthari and human experts, and we will carefully monitor the effects, ensuring that the process does not spiral out of control." "But what if it does?" the Jethorian representative interjected sharply. "What if, by combining your DNA with theirs, you create something entirely new, something that threatens both species?" Sam paused, thinking carefully before responding. "We understand the risks, but the Zenthari have already been dealing with an existential threat for years. What we're proposing is not a wild experiment, but a potential lifeline for a species on the edge of extinction. Our goal is not to create new beings or force unnatural evolution. It is simply to restore balance." Viewership spoke next, her voice calm but firm. "The Galactic Union is built on cooperation and mutual support. Humanity has proven time and time again that we can work together, despite our differences. We are asking for that support now. The Zenthari will not survive without help. We need to act, and we need to act soon." The chamber fell into silence again as the representatives processed the weight of her words. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the head of the Galactic Union stood and spoke. "We will deliberate," the leader said, his voice carrying through the room. "But the Union recognizes the importance of this matter. A final decision will be made soon. For now, the research will proceed, under strict supervision." Sam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The debate was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like they might actually have a chance. Viewership turned to Sam, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Dr. Carter. We are one step closer to saving my people." Sam gave a nod, but he knew the real challenge was just beginning. The political fight ahead would be as difficult as the scientific one. But for the first time, he allowed himself to believe they might succeed. The days following the Galactic Union meeting were tense. Though the Council had given their preliminary approval to proceed with the hybrid research, Sam and Viewership knew they weren't out of the woods yet. They had to prove their methods were both safe and effective before the Union would fully back their project. Every step was watched closely, and any mistake could mean the end of their work. Sam sat in his lab late one evening, reviewing data from the latest test on the Zenthari virus interaction. Viewership was at his side, helping with the analysis. The lab, located deep within the research complex of HFY's capital, was quiet except for the occasional hum of machinery and the soft beeping of the consoles. "This should be our breakthrough," Sam muttered to himself, adjusting the settings on the equipment. He had developed a new procedure to stabilize the initial fusion of human and Zenthari DNA, and the preliminary results were promising. The hybrid cells had started showing signs of cellular regeneration, a process that had been lost in the Zenthari's genome due to the virus. If they could push this far enough, the hybrids might be the answer to everything. Viewership watched the screens, her expression serious. "It's looking better. But we must be careful, Dr. Carter. The Union's approval doesn't mean we have full support. There are still factions who oppose our work." "I know," Sam replied, glancing up at her. "But we can't let fear hold us back. If this works, we could save your people." Suddenly, the lights flickered. Sam looked at Viewership, his brow furrowing. What was that? Before she could answer, there was a loud crash from down the hallway. Sam immediately stood, heart racing. "Stay here," he ordered, though he knew it was unlikely Velyra would listen. He quickly grabbed his communicator and gestured for her to follow him. They stepped into the hallway, which was now lit only by the emergency lights. The silence was eerie, broken only by the distant sounds of shuffling footsteps. They hurried down the corridor, heading toward the control room where Sam's team was based. As they approached, Sam saw 2 guards lying unconscious near the door. His stomach churned with a growing sense of dread. "I don't like this," Sam muttered, pulling out his weapon. Velyra's hand hovered near her own, though she didn't pull it out. Her people were pacifists by nature, relying more on diplomacy and intelligence than force. But in this moment, they both knew they needed to act. They entered the control room cautiously. The room was in disarray. Papers and equipment were scattered across the floor, and the console screens were flashing warnings. But what really stood out was the figure standing by the main terminal, typing furiously at the keyboard. "Stop!" Sam shouted. The intruder froze, then spun around, a mask covering their face. The figure didn't respond. Instead, they pressed a button on their wrist device, and the lights in the room went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Velyra moved swiftly, her eyes glowing brighter in the dark. She activated her own communication device and sent out an alert. Sam struggled to locate the intruder in the pitch blackness, but just as he turned to grab a flashlight, he felt a sharp blow to the back of his head. He stumbled, his vision blurring, and collapsed to the floor. The last thing he saw was Velyra charging forward, her form glowing in the dark. When Sam regained consciousness, he found himself lying on the cold metal floor of an unfamiliar room. His head throbbed, and his vision was hazy. Velyra was beside him, looking just as disoriented but unharmed. Sam slowly pushed himself up, his head spinning. "We've been captured," Velyra said, her voice calm but with an edge of worry. "They must have sabotaged the lab to slow down our work." Sam rubbed his forehead. "Who are they? And how did they get in here?" Velyra's eyes narrowed. "There are factions within the Galactic Union who do not support our project. Some believe the merging of human and Xanthari DNA is unnatural. Others want to control the resources of Xanthara 5 and are afraid that if we succeed, they will lose their leverage." Sam clenched his fists. "So this isn't just sabotage. It's a full-on attempt to stop us." He glanced around the dim room. "We need to get out of here, and we need to warn the others." Velyra nodded. "I'll access the security systems. We have a limited window before they move us to a more secure location." They worked quickly, with Velyra hacking into the security grid. Sam watched over her shoulder, nervous that they wouldn't have much time before the saboteurs returned. Finally, the door to the room opened, and a tall, masked figure stepped inside, a weapon in hand. "You won't stop this project," Sam said, trying to sound confident even as the fear crept in. "We'll finish what we started. You can't win." The intruder didn't respond. Instead, they'd raised their weapon, but before they could fire, Velyra lunged forward, using her agility to disarm the attacker and pin them to the ground. "We will not let you destroy the future of my people," she said firmly, her voice unwavering. Sam quickly grabbed a comm device off the wall and sent out a distress signal. Within minutes, the security team arrived, and the intruders were apprehended. As the attackers were led away, Sam and Velyra exchanged a look. They had narrowly escaped this time, but it was clear that there were many more challenges ahead. The saboteurs had struck, but they wouldn't stop them. "We'll finish this," Sam said, determination burning in his eyes. "No matter what." Velyra nodded. Together. The attack on the research facility had shaken Sam and Velyra, but it also steeled their resolve. They couldn't afford to waste time. The Xanthari's survival depended on the success of their work, and they had come too far to turn back now. In the weeks following the sabotage, security was tightened around the facility, and the research proceeded under strict supervision. Sam and Vilera worked tirelessly, with their team focused on perfecting the DNA fusion process. But the attacks didn't stop. Mysterious figures continued to infiltrate the facility, leaving signs of their presence but never enough to catch them. One afternoon, while Sam was reviewing the latest results, he received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Carter, Ambassador Vilera. The voice came from the door. It was the head of security, a human named Captain Lara Mitchell. She stepped into the room, her expression serious. "I think it's time we talk," Captain Mitchell said, sitting down across from Sam. "I've been looking into these attacks, and I've found something strange." Sam raised an eyebrow. "What's going on?" "The people who've been sabotaging the research don't appear to be just random extremists or rogue factions," Mitchell explained. "I've traced some of their communication patterns. These attacks are coming from the highest levels of the Galactic Union. Someone with significant influence doesn't want your project to succeed." Vilera's eyes narrowed. "So this isn't just about ethics or fear of human Xanthari hybridization?" Mitchell shook her head. "No, this is about power. There are those in the Union who see your project as a threat to their control over certain resources, Xanthara 5 included. If you succeed, the balance of power shifts, and they'll lose their hold." Sam's heart sank as he absorbed the implications. "So we've been fighting not just for the Xanthari's survival, but for the future of the entire galaxy." Mitchell nodded grimly. "Exactly. And if we're going to finish this, we need to outsmart them. We can't just keep playing defense." Sam stood up, pacing as he thought. "What do you suggest?" Captain Mitchell leaned forward. "We need to take the fight to them. We can't hide behind locked doors anymore. The next phase of your research needs to be shown to the Galactic Union, but not just to their scientific council. We need to present it to the entire Union. We need to expose the corruption and show everyone the truth. Only then will we have the support we need to finish this project without interference." Vilera looked at Sam, her face full of determination. "If we do this, it will be dangerous, but we have no choice. We can't let them win." Sam met her gaze. The stakes had just gotten higher, and he knew there was no going back. But for the first time in weeks, he felt like they had a real chance of succeeding. The Galactic Union might have tried to sabotage their work, but the people they represented were not all the same. Some, like Captain Mitchell, were on their side. "We'll do it," Sam said, his voice firm. "We'll take this fight to the Galactic Union, and we'll make sure the whole galaxy knows what's at stake." The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Sam, Vilera, and Captain Mitchell worked together, gathering evidence, preparing their presentation, and coordinating with allies in the Union. They knew the risks, but they also knew that if they didn't act now, their project would never get the chance it needed. On the day of the presentation, Sam and Vilera stood before the Council of the Galactic Union once again. But this time, they weren't just presenting scientific data. This time, they had the truth. The corruption and sabotage they had faced were exposed, and they weren't alone. They had gathered proof that the sabotage came from the highest levels of the Union, and that the goal had been to prevent the Xanthari from regaining their ability to reproduce. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of different species. Sam could feel the weight of their eyes on him, and his nerves began to settle. He wasn't just a scientist now. He was a symbol of the fight for survival, for justice, for the future. "I am Dr. Samuel Carter," he began, his voice echoing across the chamber. "And this is Ambassador Vilera. We stand before you today, not just to present a scientific breakthrough, but to demand the truth. The Xanthari face an extinction-level crisis, and they have asked for our help. Our work has been repeatedly sabotaged by powerful figures within the Union who do not care for the survival of the Xanthari. They care only for their own control. We are here today to show you that the Xanthari have a chance to survive, not just through human technology or science, but through cooperation, through the coming together of species." Vilera stepped forward, her voice calm but powerful. This is not just about saving my people. This is about saving the future of the galaxy. If we do not succeed, then we all fail. Together, we can make a choice. We can unite and help those in need, or we can let fear and greed tear us apart. The room was silent, but Sam could see the shift in the mood. There were whispers, nods of agreement. The seeds of doubt had been planted in the hearts of the union's representatives. The truth was out, and there was no turning back now. As the debate continued, Sam felt a sense of determination growing inside him. No matter the opposition, he and Viewership were on the right side of history. And together, they would finish what they had started. They had come too far to fail now. The days following the dramatic presentation before the Galactic Union's Council were filled with tension and uncertainty. Sam and Viewership had presented their case, exposing the corruption within the Union. But as much as they had shaken the foundations of the political structure, they knew that their real fight was only just beginning. The Council had promised to deliberate, but Sam knew the decision would be difficult. There were too many powerful factions within the Union, each with their own agendas. Some saw the merging of human and synthetic DNA as a necessary step for survival. Others saw it as a threat to their own power and influence. In the days after their presentation, Sam and Viewership were forced to wait. Security was tight around the research facility, and the atmosphere felt heavy with anticipation. Every step Sam took seemed to echo with the weight of the decision that was yet to come. Viewership, too, felt the pressure. She spent long hours in her quarters, meditating on the future of her people. The Zenthari were on the brink of extinction, and every day mattered. The project had already made significant progress, but it would be meaningless if they couldn't convince the Galactic Union to back them fully. One morning, as Sam was working on the latest round of hybrid tests, Captain Mitchell arrived with unexpected news. "Dr. Carter, Ambassador Viewership," Mitchell said, her face grim. "The Council has made its decision, and we need to move quickly." Sam stood up, alarmed. "What do you mean? Have they agreed to fund the project?" Mitchell shook her head. "Not exactly. They've agreed to let the project continue under strict oversight, but only on the condition that we prove its success within the next few months. They've given us a tight deadline, and there's one catch. They want the first successful hybrid to be presented at the next Union Summit. If we fail, the project will be shut down, and your research will be deemed too dangerous." Viewership's face hardened, and Sam felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "A deadline," he muttered. "That's not much time at all." Mitchell nodded. "I'm afraid so. The Union wants results, and they want them fast. There's a lot of pressure riding on this, and we can't afford any mistakes." Sam ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the new information. "We've made good progress, but we're still working with untested subjects. We need more time." "I know," Mitchell said, "but time isn't on your side. If you want to save the Zenthari, you'll need to push forward, even if it means taking risks." Sam looked at Viewership, who stood silent, her expression unreadable. She was clearly processing the gravity of the situation. Sam knew that Viewership didn't want to rush things either, but the Zenthari's survival depended on the success of this project. She had to be willing to take the leap, just as he was. "We don't have much of a choice," Sam finally said, his voice steady. "We'll meet the deadline, no matter what it takes." Over the next few weeks, Sam, Viewership, and their team worked at an intense pace. Every moment felt like it was slipping away, and the pressure mounted with each passing day. The hybridization process had shown more signs of success, but there were still risks. The hybrids had shown signs of increased strength and regeneration, but there was still uncertainty about the long-term effects. Would they be stable? Would they suffer side effects? There was no way to know for sure until they tested it on a living subject. The decision was made to push forward. They would need to introduce the hybrid DNA into a willing volunteer, someone who would undergo the transformation to prove the process's effectiveness. It was a dangerous choice, but it was the only way to convince the Union that the project was viable. Lyra volunteered first. "No," Sam protested when she offered. "This is too dangerous. We don't know enough yet." But Lyra's eyes were filled with a fierce determination. "I am the ambassador for my people, Dr. Carter. If I cannot trust this process, then how can I ask anyone else to? I will be the one to take this step." Sam hesitated, his mind racing. He understood her desire to save her people, but he couldn't shake the fear that something could go wrong. Still, he knew they had no other choice. "All right," he said reluctantly. "We'll move forward with you as the subject, but we'll take every precaution." The procedure began under the watchful eyes of their scientific team. Sam stood at the forefront, overseeing every step of the process. The sterile environment of the laboratory was tense, and the air seemed thick with anxiety. Lyra lay on the table, her body ready to undergo the procedure that could either save her people or doom them. As the hybrid DNA was introduced into her system, Sam couldn't help but wonder if they were making a mistake. He glanced at Lyra, who was calm despite the risks. Her trust in him was unwavering, and that trust pushed him to continue, even when doubts clouded his mind. The hours passed in a blur of calculations, observations, and tests. As the procedure continued, Lyra's body responded. There were small changes at first, subtle increases in energy, slight alterations in her biochemistry, but the real test would come later. Only time would reveal if the hybridization was truly a success. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the procedure was complete. Lyra slowly sat up, her eyes bright with an intensity Sam hadn't seen before. She was different, somehow, but in a way that was what they had hoped for. "Well?" Sam asked, his voice full of cautious hope. Lyra smiled. "I feel stronger, more alive." It was a small victory, but it was enough. Sam knew that they were on the right path. They had proven the process was possible, and now they had to show the Union that this was the future. There was still much to be done, but for the first time, Sam felt a flicker of hope for the Zenthari. The weeks following Lyra's successful hybridization were a blur of activity. The Zenthari had finally begun to show signs of hope. Her transformation was not without its challenges, but the results were undeniable. She was stronger, more energetic, and most importantly, her body was beginning to show signs of natural regeneration, a key feature that had been lost due to the virus that plagued her species. Sam and Lyra watched her closely, monitoring every aspect of her health and abilities. While the initial effects were promising, the real test would be whether the changes were sustainable. Every day brought new data, and the excitement within the team was palpable. Lyra, however, remained focused. Despite the breakthrough, she knew that there was still much work to be done. The Zenthari people needed more than just proof that the process worked on one individual. They needed to know that it could be replicated, that it could save an entire species. One evening, as Sam was reviewing the latest data, he found himself thinking about the future. He knew they couldn't afford to let the Union's bureaucracy stall their progress. They had come so far, and now that they had proof the process worked, they needed the support to continue. The stakes were higher than ever. Lyra entered the room, her usual calm presence offering Sam some comfort. "I know what you're thinking," she said softly, her voice steady. "We need to show the Union that this is the future." Sam nodded. "We've got the results. We've proven it works. But there's still a long road ahead. We need full support from the Union if this is going to be more than just a one-time success. And I'm not sure we're going to get that kind of backing unless we can demonstrate that this will save my people and yours." Lyra smiled, a determined spark in her eyes. "We will, Dr. Carter. We have to. The future of both our peoples depends on it." The final presentation to the Galactic Union was fast approaching. Sam and Lyra had gathered the necessary data, and they had refined their case. The test subjects had shown significant improvements, and the hybridization process had proven to be far more effective than anyone had anticipated. But they knew the Union would require more than just data. They would need to see the results firsthand. The day of the presentation arrived, and the atmosphere in the Union Hall was charged with anticipation. Sam stood at the front of the grand chamber, his heart pounding as he prepared to speak. This was the moment they had been working toward for so long. Lyra stood beside him, her posture regal and confident. The entire Union Council, along with representatives from numerous species, were seated in front of them. The stakes couldn't be higher. Sam could feel the weight of their eyes on him, their expectations pressing down on his shoulders. He cleared his throat and began. Esteemed members of the Galactic Union, we stand before you today not only as scientists and ambassadors, but as representatives of a future that is in our hands. The research we've presented shows promise. The hybridization process can save the Xanthari people from extinction, and it can offer new hope for the future. We have proof that this works. He gestured toward Lyra, who stepped forward. As I speak, you can see the results in me. The process has already started to reverse the damage done by the virus. I am stronger than I have ever been, and my people will be stronger too. The Xanthari will not be lost to history. Together, we will create a new future. The room fell silent as the council members exchanged looks, processing what they had just heard. The evidence was undeniable. Sam had hoped for a moment like this for so long, but now that it was happening, he found himself struggling to predict the outcome. For what felt like an eternity, the council deliberated. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. Then, after what seemed like hours, the head of the council stood up. Dr. Carter, Ambassador Lyra, she began, her voice echoing through the chamber. We have reviewed the data. We have seen the results for ourselves, and we believe in what you have done. Sam's heart raced as the councilwoman continued. This is not just a breakthrough for the Xanthari. This is a breakthrough for the entire galaxy. We cannot ignore the possibilities your work presents. You have our support, not just for the continuation of your project, but for its expansion. The Union will back your efforts, and you will have the resources needed to bring this to all those who need it. The room erupted in applause. Sam and Lyra exchanged a look of disbelief, but underneath the shock, there was a profound sense of relief. They had done it. The Union had approved their project. The future of the Xanthari, and possibly countless other species, was secure. In the days that followed, the research facility was flooded with messages of support. Representatives from different species sent their congratulations, and new partnerships were formed to help expand the project. Sam knew they had won the backing of the Union, but this victory was just the beginning. There was still so much work to do. The next steps would be crucial. For Lyra, the success of the project meant the survival of her people, but she also understood that it was a victory for cooperation and unity. It wasn't just about saving the Xanthari. It was about bringing species together to create a better future for all. I never thought I would see the day when we could celebrate like this, Lyra said to Sam as they stood together, watching the sunset over Xanthara 5. Sam smiled. We've come a long way, and together, we'll keep pushing forward. As the two of them stood side by side, looking out over the horizon, they knew that their journey wasn't over. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but for the first time in a long while, they'd felt a sense of hope. They had shown the galaxy that unity, cooperation, and science could change the course of history, and they would continue to fight for that future.